I don't believe AA is a safe place for girls and young women. Like, hard stop, doesn't matter where you go. Part of our group was the sex trafficking of young women, myself being one of them. For somebody that has the hopelessness in me has been exploited so many like for so much of my life, like to have somebody say, "You're okay, you got this, you don't need me, but we're here if you need us." People that are in the business of helping people, that should be the posturing of everyone.
Mm. Hello and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten and I'm super excited you are here today for a great episode we have with Mandi. She is a cult and child traffic survivor, a red flag educator for parents and teens, and changing the way we talk to kids about predators. Her Instagram is at Mandi with an I. Mandi P Talks Predators. I'll also link it below. And she's also on Substack. And she is a writer as well. Mandi, I'm so happy you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I would love to start this out with giving us an idea of about how long were you in Alcoholics Anonymous and when did you leave?
I was in from 1997 to 2004. So from the time I was 15, and then I left at 22. Although I tried to leave a couple times in between that, but never made it more than a couple days.
Why was it difficult to leave or what happened?
It was difficult because my entire life was the group that I was in. I had, through the course of becoming part of that group, I had to give up everything outside of them, under the guise of that it wasn't safe. So I mean, I didn't have any friends outside the group. I had pretty much, relinquished my family. We were all required to live together, in group homes. In order for me to leave, I had to give up my place to live. Everybody I knew. I mean, my cell phone, every single person on my cell phone was people in the group. I mean, very, very, very few people were in my life outside of it. So the decision to leave is a decision to start from scratch. And it was scary. It was scary. But eventually it became um, the fear of that and the struggle of that outweighed staying.
Yeah, for sure. Fully involved, immersed into it. And if you started in 1997, that's right around when a lot of us first got pagers, maybe cell phones, maybe email
Hmm.
addresses. Like it was all, I can see how it's all AA in your.
Yeah, I think I probably got um, my phone. I think we started to get phones like the year I graduated from high school. So yeah, um, yeah, I had a blank slate. So, and I had been indoctrinated into the belief that my head was trying to kill me,
Mm,
and which is, I think a requirement of any uh, brainwashing system or cult is that they have to you know, brainwash you out of trusting your own instincts. Um, I mean, I was even, that's the thing that I think was probably the most insidious is they told me ahead of time, your head that is broken is going to tell you that this is too much or that you don't need us or that you can probably be okay on your own now. And that is that is the sign and symptom of it trying to kill you and take you over. And so I was scared of the thoughts that I constantly battled with. Like, I mean, I had only drank maybe like 3 or 4 times, and and we're talking like beers and maybe like, the box wine that you like steal from your parents. So yeah, I had a lot of battle within myself about, oh my God, this is what they said was going to happen, and it's happening in real time. This is me like marching towards my demise, basically. So that was like a really um, that was the probably the greatest barrier to exiting, and just like the desperate loneliness that awaited me because I mean our quote unquote brand of AA was 24/7. I mean, you were with people, everybody had jobs or went to school and stuff like that, but like come 5 o'clock, you were picking people up from meetings, you were going to dinner, you were doing like service commitments, you were at the meeting. If you weren't an hour early to the meeting, you were late. If you left after the meeting was over, you were like skipping out and not staying and helping people. So it was every single day, calling people all day long, people calling you. So to go from all of that constant activity
Mm.
and social network basically to nothing is stark, and it's dark and scary and lonely. And it took me a couple tries
Yeah.
to get out.
And our brain is still developing so rapidly between 15 and 22. So you're getting wired into this ideology as your brain is really developing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I'm also, something unique to me, like I'm adopted. And so that was also something that was kind of
Mm.
used um against me in a way, in terms of like, well, you don't know what's in your blood, and you don't know like this could, and that's the thing. I mean, I was a what they would refer to back then as like a troubled teen. Um which just meant that I was rebellious and rejecting of the rigidity of my parental environment. Um, but because my parents were so insistent that there was something wrong with me, because, well, one, I wasn't really like them. Um, I have a different nature and we're just very different people. But they were like good kids when they were growing up. And so they saw my rebellion as like, alarming and indicative that there's a problem here, there's something wrong here. And so they were, taking me to therapists and trying to get me to, just listen and do what they wanted and not rebel. And the more they kind of clamped down on me, the more I ratcheted up the rebellion, which put me in a lot of dangerous situations. And they eventually like had me checked into an adolescent uh, psychiatric treatment center. Um, and like we were talking about earlier, it's when teenagers, have any substance use whatsoever, it's treated as problematic. It's treated as addiction or alcoholism. And it's really just breaking the rules. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's normal teenage experimentation. I mean, sure, especially today with prescription drugs and whatnot, there is absolutely a potential for teenagers to get hooked on, hard, highly addictive drugs. But I mean, I was smoking weed and, drinking, but that was actually my thing. I like to smoke weed. I didn't even really drink that much. It was, you're a teenager, it's whatever available. Um, but it was in that treatment center that the group that I was a part of, which was the Midtown group in the Washington, D.C. area, um, they brought meetings in there to, which I mean, I guess is customary for any, facility. But this is one of the very many, many issues with AA is that, um, if people say they're a member of an AA group, it's like, oh, okay. Like there's just like these institutions and rehabs and whatnot. It's just like, oh, okay, check. like anybody can just say that they're an AA member and come in and start recruiting. Um, and that's like the lack of checks and balances in that sense is a little alarming. But that's how I got introduced to the group that I got trapped into, was that the very reputable hospital I was in allowed them in, and then encouraged my parents and myself to continue to go and see them. And I was supposed to go, do a 90 and 90. And they said, listen, this is a young people's group. If she doesn't replace, her social life with a sober one, she's gonna go back to what she was doing. So, um, they offered that, and that was kind of the hook. They also had, I the my first like foray with them, there was a boy there, and I mean I was 15 years old. I was boy crazy, and there's this. I think he was a senior in high school at the time, so um, I was enamored, and he paid me attention, and I kept going back, not because that was what was best for me. It was because I wanted to see him. um which I now kind of understand the whole system, the way it was set up. That the younger guys were bait, for the older men in the group. Um, and that's, I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but that was kind of, and there became a time where I was kind of served as bait too, because it's an ecosystem that requires, if you want young people, and the younger and younger, you have to have youngish people that are going to attract them, to distract from the 30, 40, and 50-year-old men that are in charge. So
Yeah. It sounds like you didn't have a drinking problem. Did I hear that right?
yes, I'm actually, I should probably say I'm not an alcoholic. The people in my life today, when they hear that I was in AA, are I mean, they just can't, because I don't even really drink. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling. And so, yeah, I'm not an alcoholic. I was just a kid who had strict parents who didn't, like my choices. Um, but I was, what I could not argue with. And so when they were trying to convince me that I was an alcoholic, without even really asking much about myself, it was just the fact that I landed there was evidence that that's where I
Right.
needed to be. I, I would say, like, I didn't really drink that much. I did like to smoke pot, and I did do that with, my friends and stuff. They kept, the thing they would go back to was like, you know, you definitely have this, and you can either wait for it to get worse, or you can just nip it in the butt now. Um, but the reason we know you have what we have is because the feelings are all the same. So that was the thing that hooked me. I mean, truly, that was it. So think about being a 15-year-old girl. Nobody in your life in the high school cafeteria are speaking with any sort of vulnerability, right? Everybody's just trying to like make their way and look cool, and like, not be kicked out of the friend group that week by the latest mean girl, whatever. So when they would say things like, I, would walk into a room and I felt like everybody there that was laughing, they were laughing at me. Or when I would approach a table and people would start whispering, I assumed, oh, they don't want me there. So I would hear those things and I'd be like, oh my God, yes, me too. I did not know at the time that everybody feels that way, that is not a symptom of being an alcoholic. But I had never been exposed to people, speaking with any sort of vulnerability. So I didn't know. I didn't know. I just assumed, oh, wow, they're right. Or, that when you drink or smoke weed or whatever, all that paranoia and stuff would go away and suddenly be relaxed and life would be easier and better. Well, yes, that's true for everybody. Like, I mean, that's not, again, not a symptom. And, the fact that I was in therapist's office and, psych wards and whatnot, that was, there's obviously something wrong with you. They, and in these hospitals and stuff back in the 90s, this was like during the era of like Prozac Nation and, every teenage girl was bipolar, which, in all fairness, a lot of crossover symptoms. I have a tween right now, and it's like the mood swings and the, sense of knowing everything and like the delusions of things. I mean, I get it, but I've been medicated as if I was bipolar, and it didn't work. And so then they put me on a different medication, and that just made me really sad. And so then they put me on a different one. So it was very clear that everything that doctors and therapists and whatnot, they were trying to fix a problem that didn't exist, but nothing, because it didn't exist, nothing was working and everything seemed to make me worse. So the idea of, well, the reason why none of that is working and the reason why you feel worse is because this is your actual problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was, I guess, in a sense, like an easy sell. Because yeah, my life was unmanageable because of this insistence that there was something wrong with me. And parents that, were so displeased. So I don't know. I mean, it was, it kind of breaks my heart a bit because there's so many people that I was in that group with that have the exact same situation, that came in at 14, 15, which I think is wild that we could even suggest that somebody whose brain is still so underdeveloped and not done growing has alcoholism, but that they're still in AA today in their 40s. I mean, it's because they got busted drinking at a party once, it's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it breaks my heart, but so yeah.
It seems like it wasn't common in your friend group then to leave AA if some of them are still there all these years later, decades later. What was it that helped you break free from AA?
um I mean, I think what got me out, it's very similar to, I think, most people's stories with that are brainwashing and cults, is that it's never just like one thing. It's, 100 little cracks uh that, collide into one moment. Um, the thing about the group that I was in, um and I've come to learn since that I used to think it was that the Midtown group was this one rogue AA group, and that this didn't happen anywhere else. But I've, since learned it happens all over the place. But, a huge, um, part of our group was, the sex trafficking of young women, myself being one of them. And um, the very one of the very first cracks for me, there was a girl in our group um, who was very young, and she was young, like as in like her, like she still didn't even like have a body. I mean, she was young, and we even called her. I'll give her, like, we called her little, like, there's many, we'll say Elizabeth. We called her little Elizabeth because she was just so young and little. And one day I was supposed to drop something off at the guy who led our group. Whose name was Mike. He was in his 50s at that time. I had to drop something off at his house, and I pulled up and I saw her sitting on the porch smoking a cigarette in his t-shirt and boxers. And for some reason, I mean, it felt like cold water was just thrust into my face, because in my head, I always said, well, oh, the reason it was not a big deal that I had to sleep with him, because I am mature for my age and I look older than I am. And I was an exception to that. I did not realize that like my youth was like actually the qualifier. um, and I just felt like she was such a baby. I could not, I could not like believe that like it went that far. And so that was kind of like the first little crack for me. But then honestly, it was people started to have babies. People in the group got married. We had a lot of people that were married. And then once they started having babies, I saw how the moms were being treated, for one, as if they had like committed some sort of sin by becoming mothers, because they were less committed now and they had distractions. And a lot of eye rolling, like, oh well, she's got to do we got to have the baby, she's got to go take care of the baby. And it's like, well, yeah, she's a newborn, like. And we started creating this system of babysitting at meetings so that like the moms could sit, be in the meeting and not have to leave. And I remember, like, it was like an 8 o'clock meeting, and I'm trying to settle this baby in the hallway in this fluorescent lit room, and it's like screaming because it's an infant and it's 8:30 at night, and he wants its mother. And I was like looking in this little baby's face, like bright red, tongue trembling. And I'm like, I'm never, like, I'm not going to bring kids into this situation. Like, I will not do this. And from that point forward, I just knew like I have to find my exit. But I knew it like had to be like planned and thoughtful and strategic so that I didn't end up, you know, leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back like I had done. Um, and yeah, so I mean it was a lot of little things. There's only so many times. I don't know if this is a word that people use in other A groups, but like when you would get in trouble and be yelled at publicly, by your sponsor or by Mike or whoever the elder was, that was called getting slammed. Um, and it very often happened in public, I think intentionally. But I had had a few moments where I had gotten a pretty big lashing and been slammed. Same old, your head's up your ass, you're gonna drink and die, like your self will run riot, you don't listen to anybody, you're not surrendered. I mean, Mike specifically, I don't know if any of the other men did, but Mike specifically would like yell at us he was very triggered by seeing women eat. And he would get very angry because he wanted us all to be like bone thin. That was another thing that got me. I got put on, and I mean, I was like the same size I am now. Um, I got put on, we were we were on vacation in Costa Rica, and I took a picture of this beautiful dessert they brought out. I mean, like had flowers and fruits and everything, and he flipped out. I mean, I'm talking like all but flipped the table, and he was like, "You're a disgusting pig. You're a food addict. When we get back home, you're going on a Food Addicts Anonymous diet." And so I get home size 4, and I am now having to go to FA and getting on an FA diet where I have to call somebody every morning and tell them what I'm going to eat, and then call them in the evening and tell them what I ate. And it was like, you know, it was so bizarre. I was like, how in the world am I a food addict? Like it didn't make sense, which made me start to question everything. Like if that's true, which I know it's not, then is this true? And so it was just a lot of little unravelings that occurred.
Yeah.
Um,
Was Mike
yeah,
your sponsor, or was he more like a
he was like at the top. So he was like, it all ended with him. So we actually had, I mean, this isn't interesting to anybody outside of AA, but I there was a time early on when I was there. I was probably been in the group for about a year, and a couple of the women who were sponsored by Mike, because men sponsored women there, um, they fired him and got a sponsor outside the group. Um, and they, at our home group meeting, one night, they like everybody met behind the scenes, planned this whole thing. Somebody put a motion forward at the group conscience that night that if you had to be sponsored within the group, which meant your lineage had to fall under Mike somehow, in order to be able to vote and participate in the group conscience. It was essentially like a way to just say you're out unless you're under him. Um,
and
and so,
he's like a predatory at the same time, right?
oh yes, yes.
Just him or the whole group? Was it all like the Mike show, or was it the whole culture?
I mean, the way it was structured, Mike was the end all be all. Everything we did was to please him. He had a say in everybody's life and everybody's relationships and who was with who and who did what. I mean, he was in charge. But the people that were the closest to him, that there were several guys that he sponsored that had the most time. In AA, it's like there's this hierarchical situation with, whoever's been sober the longest. Um, and so those guys definitely, most of them, not all of them, took advantage of, the benefits and um, of that closeness. We also had, all of the money that our group raised from events and um, within the meetings and things like that. Those guys that were the closest to him, were always like the treasurers and stuff like that. And all that money went into Mike. I mean, most of us didn't know that at the time, but they were funnel. So because they were helping him funnel money into his accounts and he was being cared for, he in return, because he gets to determine who everybody gets to sleep with and who everybody dates, they would be rewarded in other ways. Um, and so it made sense for them.
And he's sleeping with underage women.
Yes.
Did
Hmm.
he ever get in trouble? Did he ever get
No,
arrested for?
no. He's since he died um a long time ago. I mean, I want to say, I don't know the year, but it was a couple years after I left. I want to say maybe like 2008 or so. Um, but no, he didn't. And what's interesting, I was actually talking to a reporter about this the other day, is that so a little while after I left, there was a group who left and I guess went to the media and FBI, and they did look into things, but in the DC area, so everybody early on lived on the Virginia side, and right as I was coming in, everybody was slowly migrating to Maryland. I don't know. I didn't know why, and I don't even know for sure if this is the case, but in Virginia, the age of consent is 18. And in Maryland, the age of consent is 16. So I don't know, but I know that, if I did not, I was not forced, and I was very much forced, but I was not forced to sleep with Mike. He actually started it on me when I was 16, but I didn't get trapped until I was 17. Um, and the bizarre thing at the time was his girlfriend at the time, like his girlfriend that he was in a relationship with, she was 17. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was routine. But there's also, the the guys that were the closest to him that were in their 30s and whatnot, um, they they were sleeping with underage girls. Everybody was. And it was all under the guise of like, well, that's the world and society, like they have their rules and laws, but like this is we live in a different kind of community and world, and that kind of stuff doesn't really apply. So no, nobody ever got in trouble, but I think it's mostly because of like just the nuances of like the laws of consent and whatnot. I think in today's world, now that we know so much more about and have sex trafficking so much better defined, the fact that I, as a Virginia resident, was being taken across state lines uh, to engage in sex acts with older men, I mean, that would have been it would have been done and over with. But I didn't know at the time. I didn't even know it was wrong. I was out for years before I realized, oh wow, that was probably very bad for me. And that was actually highly predatory. And I probably should not have been sent around to sleep with all these older men. But I mean, that's what it was. Ultimately, many other girls were used as either a reward or a means to recruit other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Must have been a lot to process, I imagine, when you woke up to what it actually was, like years after leaving.
Yeah. It was. I remember I remember the day that I was like, "Oh my gosh," because one of my coworkers, somebody I was working with, his 14-year-old daughter came in, and she was just like, I just remember looking at her and being like, "Oh my God, that is what a 14-year-old is like." Like she's a baby. And the crazy thing is that I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, your father is younger than the men that I was having to sleep with just a year later, at 15 and 16. So it was, yeah, it took a lot to realize that that was wrong, and then to uncover like the whole system of how that worked and how we were kind of utilized in that way.
I'm just so like hit by that. So I kind of just taken a breath.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it's a
a
lot.
it's a lot.
Hmm.
And what helped you wake up to that and heal from that? Like what were some of the things that you did that helped you like get that ideology, that like authoritarianism? Because it sounds like you were in what I would call like a cult within a cult.
Hmm.
Like a subgroup of AA that is highly cultish in its own way, with its own
Hmm.
leader and its own rules.
Yeah.
So what was that healing journey like for you? What helped you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it has been a lot, and it's something I continue honestly to work on to this day. Um, I used to say to people, and you know, I used to believe like I would say I wasn't actually ever really in AA. I was in this, rogue group that hijacked the AA name, and that AA is a great place and, helps a lot of people. And, that the biggest problem with AA is that, groups like the one I was in could exist, and that there's not the structure or framework to prevent that from happening. That used to be like what I assumed. Um, but I mean, AA as a whole, in terms of like the general service office and whatnot, they were very aware of what was going on in our group. I mean, people went and said, you have to like stop this. Everybody in my area and like the DC area, there were places where like we would walk in and we were like not welcome. Um, like if we were doing outreach. AKA trying to bring people into our group from there. Because we were the only ones who did AA right, and everybody else is just, you know, dialing it in. Um, so in terms of like me myself, I mean, it has been a slow unraveling. I think the cultural conversation around cults and whatnot is been extremely helpful. And I sometimes wonder, um, you know, if Leah Remini was out of Scientology and talking about what goes on in Scientology back when I was still in, would that have, I mean, because it's, I mean, or, Sarah and Mark and all the people from Nexium, like if they were out talking, would I have woken up? Because it is like bizarre how similar. I mean, it's almost it's exact. The details of things, the insidiousness of little specific things are maybe a little bit different, but the methodology um, is exactly the same. And so that definitely has helped so much in terms of like waking up to and that's how I am. Like I had to write about all that. I did write extensively about this because it just helped my brain like understand how I fell into this, how I stayed in, how they got me, how they got other people, how we didn't rebel. Like I needed to understand that and for myself. Um, and so writing it out, hearing, other stories and whatnot made it just very, very clear to me. Um, I've had to do a lot of healing from, the specifics of the stuff that I endured there. And I've made a lot of mistakes in adulthood just because I did, when I left, I went right into therapy because I was desperate and I just needed to know, like, am I really on the verge of like jails and institutions or death? Or like, did I just save my life? Like, I need somebody to tell me who's like an objective person. Um, so I did a lot of therapy around like what I lost, um, and how it came to be. But it took me a long time to kind of appreciate and identify the things that were left behind, that they had left behind in me, that I still had in me. Um, and so as I have suffered the consequences of the mistakes that I've made, the more I've unraveled, like, oh my God, like, okay, really, there's continues to be more to unpack. There's a lot of unlearning and learning to trust yourself again. I hate to say that it'll be a lifelong healing process because the part of me feels like that is AA thinking of like, you can never just like close the book. You have to always be vigilant and whatnot. But the most amazing thing that I've done, I'll say, is I did a couple of years ago. I did a psychedelic assisted therapeutic experience. I used psilocybin with a guide and a therapist over like a 3-day period, and it was extremely transformative for me. But the best thing that came out of that was like I remember having my follow-up call with my God, with the guide, and and I was telling him about, all these insights that I'd had and how I felt so good. And he said, well, if, here's some things that other people have done. He's like, if you need more, like I'm available to you, but I need you to know that you don't need me. Like you have everything in you and you are okay. And it was like, I mean, and I said, you don't like for somebody that has like the hopelessness in me has been exploited so many like for so much of my life, like to have somebody say like you're okay, you got this, like you don't need me, but we're here if you need us. Like that is that is the people that are in the business of helping people, that is that should be the posturing of everyone.
Mm.
And it took a really long, I mean, I was, 41 years old when I found that person and that, modality. So that was hugely helpful. And he's right too. I've, done it a few times by myself since, um, just because I felt like I needed to see some things a little bit more deeply. And it's been very helpful. I've never used like psychedelics like recreationally, and I cannot understand how people do. Like, I mean, it is the most exhausting experience. I cannot understand how people like take that stuff and like go to a concert or something, or use it like at a party. I'm like, it's yeah, it's wild. But that was probably one of the most helpful things I've done.
20 years after leaving AA, you're reclaiming that piece of I don't have to be in forever recovery. Like AA said, I can trust myself. I can choose if I want support or I don't, but there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, that is like if I had to like have a, a closing, like the statement on the tombstone, it was like that is the source of every like trauma and um misstep in my life, is the fact that I was somebody tried to convince me there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
You
It,
take that away and all like 93% of all my suffering would be gone.
this is part of the reason why I think AA is dangerous, period. The ideology, forget
Hmm.
about the cult leaders and the trauma that happens there. That stuff matters. I'm not saying that doesn't matter. But to me, even without all this, even the ideal situation, the fundamentally the ideology is harmful because of what it trains us, teaches us to do. Mainly
Right.
self betrayal, self abandonment, and then our value gets placed on getting out of self and like abandoning ourselves. I heard you say earlier that you used to think it was just AA is great, your group's the problem,
Hmm.
your specific group, but now you don't think that anymore. Will you
Hmm.
unpack that a little bit? Do you think AA in general is harmful, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, as I try not like I tread lightly because I'm not an alcoholic. And so all of the things that they say about alcoholics, I don't know if that's true or not. Like I don't know like that like I always think about like that story in the book about, the guy who was sober and then he was like on a trip and he drank the milk and he was like, well, it won't hurt if I put a little whiskey in the milk. And like that, I don't know if that's true about alcoholics, that like if they're away enough and they feel like they're done, will their mind trick them? I don't know. But I will say the thing I think is harmful about the way AA is and its current structure is it is a massive red flag to me for any institution to be well aware of harmful, abusive practices occurring and claiming that their hands are tied. Like to me, this whole idea of what they say doesn't even make sense. I mean, I remember because Newsweek ended up doing a story and it was like on the cover about our group, and then the Washington Post picked it up, and then it was all over like our local news and stuff. And AA, every time they went to speak with them about it, they would say, "We have no opinions on outside issues." And I'm like, this is not an outside issue. Like it is the most inside issue that you have. Like it, and so to hide behind like, our hands are tied because of our traditions, it's really, they're not. In fact, I would argue that some of the traditions, like if you read them plainly, they state we don't have, you might not have opinions on outside issues, which that is a matter of like, they don't want to talk about like, politics or whatever, because that might turn on some people off or whatever. But like, they only should be involved in issues that affect other groups or A as a whole. Well, when you have like a sex trafficking cult with your name on it in your organization, that affects AA and the brand and people's willingness to trust it and feel safe there. I mean, so like, I there are rogue actors everywhere and in every organization, but the ones that just like throw their hands like, to me, that's like a huge red flag. Um, I also, to your point, like I don't know, it doesn't seem healthy to me. This insistence that like each person must constantly be fixated and remember that they are a broken individual that can never be fixed. Like that just doesn't seem like a healthy model. Um, and I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe alcoholics are. I don't, but it doesn't seem um, to follow any sort of scientific or spiritual like path that I've ever heard. They would always say like, oh, only 5% of people or whatever make it, whatever that means. Like stay sober. Those are really bad odds and I mean that's shit statistics. Like that would be, I mean, would you ever write a prescription to patients where only 5% of the people are going to really get any benefit out of this? And then the other ones it could get, you know, significantly worse. I don't know. I mean, that seems kind of crazy. I assumed wrongly, naively, that when Mike died, everything would kind of just like disperse and people would be ethical and free. I've just since discovered that all of the abusive practices are still very much in play, that there are people that have taken up the helm in his absence and are preying on young girls and young women, and in some ways in methods that are even more egregious than like what I had to endure. And so we've tried to get a little bit more vocal about, you know, that I don't believe AA is a safe place for girls and young women. Like hard stop, doesn't matter where you go. It's not safe. And in trying to discuss that with people that could help bring that kind of message to light, I have been a little floored at how much resistance there is to, we can't, we can't speak negatively about AA, like the precious institution. There's a lot of preciousness about AA and like in ways that I feel like were they probably most people push back on, like when they were trying to expose the Catholic Church. Like, oh, but that's such a massive, religion that has helped so many people, and we you just can't go up against that. Like the fact that that's the positioning of a lot of reporters and media and even a lot of podcasters, won't touch it. um I love the work that Sarah and Nippy have done with a little bit culty, and I think they've like contributed so much to the cultural conversation about building awareness of cults and you know uh, abusive practices and whatnot. But when they had um, they had a guest on who was talking about the cultiness of AA. And in advance of that, they put out like a post that was like, we just wanna like very preciously, and and I'm not saying like I'm not faulting them, but it was just like, whoa, like a little
Yes.
bit culty indeed,
I
like, do we
found
really
it
have to tiptoe around this?
I found it disturbing how many times during that episode, if it's the same episode that I listened to, that it was said again and again and again by the hosts. We're not saying anything bad about AA. We have family and friends in AA. This is nothing bad about AA. This is their
Yeah.
view. And I just kept feeling like betrayed, honestly, because to me, like the worst thing that comes out of this being gaslit into these cults is the self gaslighting. That's one of the worst
Mm-hmm.
things, is that we, like, a lot of us stop trusting ourselves and believing in ourselves. And part of the reason why I feel I'm getting the chills, why AA is so hard to leave and heal from, is because the world still gaslights us. Society still gaslights us out of the fact that it is a harmful institution in the first place. It is literally a cult religion. Bill took a cult religion, rebranded it. It had nothing to do with sobriety or recovery or addiction. It was from the 1930s, from the Oxford group. So there's nothing about modern medical science, so-called personality disorders or childhood trauma or neurodivergence or any of the situations, mental health stuff that we're actually going through, or even coping skills to deal with alcohol triggers and stuff like Smart Recovery deals with. So
Mm-hmm.
none of it was even designed about alcohol addiction recovery or any of that. It was made up from the beginning. And still today, 90 years later, people won't even say it's harmful, like as a statement. And I think that tension within me built up to the point where I just erupted, was like, fuck it, I'm going to talk about it because we deserve better. And I'm just, anywhere I would go, it's the professionals wouldn't even acknowledge that it's harmful. And I think that's what keeps a lot of us trapped. And then I think about the people that I knew who didn't make it out of AA. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And what about the people who leave AA and don't make it?
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is because we're being gaslit as a society about how harmful it is to believe this ideology? And nobody will fucking call it out. And we just let it happen. And even AA saying, one more thing. I'm sorry, I just got so hit
Oh
by what you
no.
said. In my group, we had a predator. And he wasn't running the show like yours, but we all knew about him and we'd warn the newcomers. I was warned as a newcomer. And we would warn the newcomers. We knew what he was doing. He was going for newcomers that were of there's a certain type he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had warned my friend, don't go near this guy. And then he got her as well. Like, she got assaulted by him. And what he did, he could be arrested for.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my sponsor, and she said something to the lines of, that's his side of the street. There's your business, his business, and God's business. You
Mm-hmm.
stay on your side of the street. And I remember feeling so betrayed that my own sponsor was telling me essentially that it's okay that he raped my friend,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not my business. And that
Right.
she even said maybe God's using him to get her sober and other people sober and using that stuff. And I was told to not say anything. And it's my fault that I didn't then go to the cops or try to do anything. But I was shot down by a woman who meant well, who I loved,
Mm-hmm.
who had daughters herself, who really did. She was a good person. But when we're in that ideology, it's like we can't see straight. We don't know right from wrong. And that's why the predators get to prey on us,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody is stopping it. And it's not an outside job, like you said. Sorry, I just kind of like the buildup of this conversation and my own maybe sexual trauma in my past, and just knowing this is just,
Mm-hmm.
it's not right. And AA won't even address it. That was a shock to me that you said that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well,
Namaste.
but here's the thing. I understand why people like, to the thing that like set this off. Like, I understand why Sarah was so hesitant and why she kept repeating that in that podcast. Because unlike somebody leaving Scientology or leaving Nexium or leaving whatever, tight religion, those are just people's kind of like personal like journeys of choice to be a better person. Whereas with AA, they people's these are people's lives. Like they people that typically end up in AA, um, you know, their lives are in danger. So I understand why they treated it with a little bit more kid gloves, so to speak. Because people's lives are at risk. But at the same time, to your point, I mean,
Mm.
uh, uh yeah, it's um it is a very dangerous conundrum that you could have like a judge sentence a sexual predator, abuser, what have you, to AA, on the basis of like, his behavior is caused by substance use, whatever. And that man could enter the rooms anonymously as dictated by principal. And then you can also have women and young girls who, because of some sort of sexual trauma or abuse they've endured, have taken to the bottle. They then are coming to AA to try and find recovery. And here these two people sit side by side with like no protections and
Yep.
no idea that even, I mean, this predator you had in your group, thank God, people were attuned. Well, not that it seemed to help anybody, but, what if I was a person who walked into that room and you didn't get me to give me the warning? You know what I mean? Um, the fact that AA is a place where a known rapist and predator is very much permitted and welcome to attend
He's
is,
allowed to pray, essentially.
yes, yes. And I mean, who better to prey upon than vulnerable people who need help? And that is the other thing that kills me about AA is like to put the behest on that vulnerable person who needs help. Well, here's some things that could happen in an AA group, and here's some of the warning signs of people that are dangerous, or you know groups that are a little culty or whatever, to put that requirement on the individual themselves who's already in a desperate, vulnerable state to then discern, is this a sign? Like, I mean, that's crazy. It should be this. You're purporting to help like the most vulnerable amongst us, and yet that that very fact is what attracts predatory people to come. um that's they have to clean that up. I mean, they got to do something, and they very much could, and they don't, and that is a problem.
Right. I was shocked when I found out that the Sinclair method has a 78 to a 90% success rate for reducing harm in drinking. And I think it's about 25% of those people, although that stat I'm a little bit less sure on, decide to actually go completely sober after. And what it does is you take the pill an hour or two before you drink every time, and your brain unlearns problematic drinking so that you become a normal drinker again. And this was the pill that Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, kind of dreamed about, hoped if one day there is a medication that will make us normal people again, our hats are off to you, whatever. And we have that. And it's been FDA approved since 1994. So there's a 78% success rate with this to reduce harmful drinking. And
That's
there's
better than five.
and there's a 5%. So even though influencers, podcasters, personalities, celebrities mean well when they promote AA, essentially by not talking about the harm or talking about it as if it's a good thing, straight up saying I went and I love it, like Brad Pitt did 2 weeks ago. So when these influential people come out and promote it, essentially by either disclaiming that they're not saying anything bad about it or straight up saying it's great and it's the way, they're failing to look at the reality. To me, it's a little bit, they're not seeing the reality of how it's actually not the way. And actually, if you want to reduce your harm when you're drinking, like most of us do, we don't actually want to get sober. We want to not have our consequences. This path
Right.
over here is like significantly many times over higher success rate. And it's not a cult. There is no brainwashing. You don't have to change your personality. You literally don't even need willpower. You neurologically become less interested in alcohol. And so there's still to me, it is still a blind spot in society that's like left over from the 1930s, that this is even a viable path to sobriety. And because people think it's a viable path to sobriety, nobody can talk about it, which I understand. And when you said that, and I get it, and I don't fault people who don't see a deeper layer there, because it took me 5 years after leaving AA, and I was in the thing for 10 years to even understand it. So how could somebody who's never been in it even really appreciate it?
Right.
So I get I guess, naivete with it. But the more that I've gone deep and learned the facts, I'm like, but it's not even a viable path to sobriety. You get perpetuated into these relapse cycles where you're feeding the rehab industry. You keep going back to AA and have the shame ritual of you're a newcomer again, or you have to take on this new cult personality to stay there, where now you're religious and you're obedient, and it's just not even.
You want to know something so bizarre is, so we watched the new Happy Gilmore last night, and apparently either Adam Sandler or somebody in his camp was real close to the Pacific Group, because they had a whole thing about AA in there, and about, I mean, like, that was a huge part of the whole thing. And they had, they're at these AA meetings, and the guy running it has people, providing like doing free labor on his house while he kind of sits around and has coffee, and they're like, being screamed at and told to work harder. And at the end, the FBI comes in, busts it up as like a human trafficking ring. And so I was like, well, somebody in this camp like has either been in or knows some of the folks out there in LA. Because that was like the group that we like kind of modeled ourselves after and gained favor with. And even like when all that stuff with Newsweek came out and the Washington Post, somehow, and I don't know how he would even be a credible source, but Clancy is in there being quoted like defending us, like, oh no, they're a wonderful organization. And like, if there was ever anything bad that was happening there, was it just a few bad actors and they're fabulous and whatnot. I was shocked to see that last night. I was like, oh, here's an interesting and accurate portrayal of what AA really is, in a lot of the parts of the country. So the Sinclair method, is that, so the pill that you take, does that prevent you from getting drunk? Is that
No.
basically what it is? Or it's not the one that you take and it makes you sick if you drink?
No, great question. No, and I haven't had a drink since 2009, so I've never tried this. So I just read the book and looked at the research papers and watched
I've heard
the
about
documentary. And so the book is called The Cure for Alcoholism, and the documentary is called One Little Pill, I think. And so naltrexone blocks the opioid receptors in your brain. So if
Okay.
you're on some sort of opioids, and you take naltrexone, you'll go through withdrawal. It could be quite dangerous. But so there's a few things to look out for, right? But so it blocks the opioid receptors in your brain. So when you drink, your brain is not reinforced through the endorphins, the exogenous opioids in your body being released from the alcohol. So you can still get drunk, you can still get buzzed. It's just not going to give you that extra kick, is what I've been told it feels like.
Okay.
That is rewarding in your brain.
Okay.
So
All right.
if you have like a pathway in your brain, when you take naltrexone, it can take 3 to 6 months or maybe even a year. Everyone is different. Where every time you take it, it's like Pavlov and the dog, right? So
Okay.
it rings the bell and all of a sudden and gives the food, and the dog learns the bell means food. Well, if you just ring the bell and bring no food, the dog learns unlearns to salivate because the bell no longer has a reward to it. So that's what naltrexone does. You unlearn the reward of alcohol so that pathway in your brain, it's called extinction. It shrivels up. And so you're no longer have that addiction pathway in your brain. You can get it again if you start drinking without naltrexone,
Okay.
but you no longer have that reaction to alcohol. And this works for about 78 or more to 90% of the people. So we just fundamentally, so my standpoint is we're fundamentally looking at addiction the wrong way, and it is extremely harmful to funnel people into this one path that is super problematic, not just because of the people, but because of the principles that you have to live by.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder, that's very interesting because I don't know about the group you were in, but in my group, you are not allowed to be on any medication. And
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it was that you're not sober if you're taking anything
Yeah.
that affects you from the neck up. I actually think that had more to do with the fact that, like, they didn't want any of us speaking to a professional because that just same thing as Scientology is like they're gonna like a shrink
Oh,
or a therapist is gonna be like, whoa, wait, how many times and what are you doing and who said that you have to do that? Like they didn't want any outside influences, calling out what we were doing. And I've always believed that that's why no medication, because any medication you're on, whether it's routinely or just quarterly or once a year, you have to see a doctor and talk about your feel like what's going on in your life and check in and all that stuff. And I just think that they wanted all of that out, which is the same reason I assume in Scientology, no
right.
psychiatrist, no therapist, because you don't want any person worth their salt basically to say, so what are you guys doing there? Like that is not
Yeah.
kosher. But now I almost wonder if like because that pill's been around for so long, like if if you don't want us seeing professionals and whatnot because you don't want to lose your legitimacy, if there's another way that works. My goodness gracious. And I mean, and assuming that pill is not, thousands and thousands of dollars,
It's
like that's a,
it's no, it's generic. It's $1 to $2 a pill.
okay,
And
so
there's no withdrawals because you slowly are neurologically less interested in alcohol over time. So there's no withdrawals. There's no detox needed. You could still have consequences. You could still, I don't know, maybe black out or drink too much or whatever. It's not an overnight thing and it's not magic, but it's a slow unlearning of like the Pavlov. It's an unlearning.
yeah.
It's called extinction when you unlearn the paired responses. And I cannot see why that's not the leading method other
Why
than
are people not
legacy.
talking about that?
I honestly, the reason why I think they're not is because of the propaganda. And so anybody who's promoting AA, in my opinion, is the AA propaganda, including people who won't talk about AA. There's only one cult expert or cult in the cult world that will even talk about the AA as a cult. Anybody else won't even touch it. The cult people won't
Are you
even
talking
touch
about
it.
Daniela?
Yeah, the knitting
Yeah.
cult lady is the only
Yeah.
person who is in the cult like industry that actually talks about AA as a cult. Nobody else will even touch it. And so that's why I think that we're not even getting what's the result of that then? Dead people. Not
Mhm.
just the harmed people, the people that don't even get sober or get to like reduce their harm. The people who take their own lives. Because
Mhm.
nobody will even touch it, so we can't even look at that there's a better option or better options plural, not just one. There's many different things. That's why like I just feel so passionate about this. I feel like we're getting screwed. We
Yeah.
really deserve better. It's not fair. And so, I don't know. I should calm down
No.
because I feel very
No,
strongly about this.
it's so true. And I mean, I have people in my life who like I know and I think they probably know too, they're gonna have to get sober at some point. And I think I mean, I know like in the zeitgeist, like it's like, oh, if you have to go get sober, that it's AA. Like
Yeah,
I mean, people don't know about the Sinclair method or even that like there's alternatives in terms of like, going to like that you could go and talk to your doctor about it because most doctors
they don't know either.
are sending people to AA, which is
Right.
so like like the fact that and that's another reason like why I talk out about this because the people who are referring people to AA need to like get with
Yeah.
because that is the first place a lot of people go to like their therapist or their medical doctor or whatnot. I mean if they cannot be they can't be saying this is the only way.
And
I mean
they might
if they
be
want to
in
continue to say
AA.
it's an option, oh well that's true too, that's yeah.
If
That's
they're
true.
indoctrinated, so society is indoctrinated into Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why it's untouchable, because society is indoctrinated. Society was not indoctrinated into Scientology or specific
Right.
religions, just in
That's very
general.
true.
AA got into public institution. They got into, yeah, Hollywood.
Hmm.
Constant propaganda about AA is the way. And so, yeah, some doctors and medical professionals are in AA themselves, but if even if they're not, they still innocently say AA is the way.
Hmm.
So, do you think that there are still groups that were like the group that you were in the 90s going on, or the legacy of your own group? Is that still occurring with the
Yes.
trafficking and the
Yes.
what
Yes.
would you say if somebody who is in a group like that is watching this or is just leaving a group like this? What would you say to them?
Um, well, as much as you're indoctrinated not to, I think you everybody, whether you're an alcoholic or not, does have a gut instinct, and that is a like God given, universe given, nature given, whatever you want to call it. That is something in us that's in all animals that are meant to alert us to danger to keep us safe. And you need to heed that and not distrust it. I mean, that I would tell that to anybody about anything. But, um, you know, it's tough to make noise in a place that wants you to be quiet.
Hmm.
Um, I think as a whole, I mean, there's certain things like I tell people to look out for, um, because I know it's not just in the DC area anymore. I mean, people that I grew up with in that group have moved to different parts of the country and have started that there wherever they are now.
Oh,
And I think as a whole, I would say if you go to a meeting and and they use the term pigeon or baby, so like in referring to the people they sponsor, like my pigeons do this or my babies, like that is a dog whistle. And I would not go back there. That is for some reason, I don't know why, but that is a term that is unique to the most coercive and controlling groups that are out there. And that the language, some of that language just becomes so part of your, you know, vocabulary that you can't break it. I would advise any young woman, young women or girls, um, that if you feel it necessary to go to AA, if that's literally the only thing that you are willing to do, to go to women's meetings only.
mm.
Um, I think that's very important. And not to let those women gobble you up and then take you to other meetings, like women's meetings only. I think we're watching it in the greater scale, and it sounds like so like negative, but I think women, for the sake of protecting themselves, it's very clear that society as a whole um, does not see protecting us as a priority. Um, and you need to move in the world as such. So do not assume that, like, oh, you know, these people will take care of me or I'll be safe there because what I mean, unfortunately, we need to move through the world um, protecting ourselves. And if something doesn't feel right, you got to go with that. Um,
Mm.
that's the other thing that makes me nuts. I mean, you talk to people in AA or out of it, most people know what the 13th step is. They've heard that term. If your organization like has a term, a well-known term for, sexual predation, like you have a problem
Mm-hmm.
as an organization. I mean, like that is crazy to me that um it's so much a thing that it has a, a term and a phrase. So, you know, unless you're like, there's no reason for any man, no matter how long he's been sober, to involve himself with a newcomer that is a female. Like, period, done. I come at it from that kind of angle of like wanting to protect women because I've, you know, been at the hands of what can happen there. But, overall, yeah, I would, I beg, I implore, like the medical community, like the legal system, mental health facilities and professionals, and that you gotta look closer at where you're sending people and look at these other ways, like what you discussed. I mean, I can't think of a single other disease or issue in which there's only one way. I can't, I mean, there's not a single other, whether it's an eating disorder or depression or anxiety or even like cancer or heart disease, but there's not any other ailment that affects humanity that there's only one way.
There's one way in a
Um,
cult. A cult has one way.
well, yes, a cult has one way. Exactly, exactly. And I mean, like like all of these things in and of themselves should be red flags, truly.
Yeah. I'm curious because I know you're doing all this great work now to help keep women and children safe from predators, and that's part of what feels like maybe it's a calling for you
Hmm.
or a purpose for you or something like that.
Hmm.
And at least from the outside, that's kind of how it appears to be. You're
Yeah.
passionate about it, and I know that it's really needed. And I've seen on your Instagram a lot of things that like I just wish I would have seen when I was going, you
Hmm.
know what I mean? That there were times, or even how you help parents talk to kids, or, but it's even how medical professionals can talk to younger people. Because when my pediatrician asked if I had been sexually abused, I didn't relate with those terms. And I
Yeah.
said no, because had he said, is somebody touching you? I would have said yes.
Hmm.
Even the language that was used, I couldn't identify with. And so it kept happening, even though I was having symptoms. He's like, why does a 12-year-old have the shingles? What is all this stress you're going
Hmm.
through? So I love the work that you're doing. It's so needed.
Thank
And
you.
like, I don't know, there's just like to the depth of my being, I just appreciate it and what you're doing because of
Oh,
just like,
thank you.
because it touches on a pain that I had, and that what there weren't voices like that,
Hmm.
when I was growing up and stuff. And so I just feel like so happy at the core of me to know what you're doing.
Hmm.
And I'm just wondering, as far as relating to like leaving AA, or someone who might be watching this, or maybe they have kids and could come find you, learn how to talk to their kids better. But how did you help to protect yourself? Like, what can help people protect themselves from predators, or if there's someone who's just leaving from AA or still in AA, particularly if they left AA? Because when I left AA, I felt like, oh my God, I was played. I got conned. I got scammed.
Hmm.
How was I easy prey? I need to figure out why I keep getting preyed upon so that I don't get preyed upon again. I got to figure this out. So, what would you say to somebody who feels like duped or manipulated, and how could they protect themselves from predators?
This is a tough one because I don't want to make it seem like people who have been preyed upon is some sort of failure of theirs to do the right thing or to protect themselves. But I go back to like the gut thing. That
Mm-hmm.
is every single time I've gotten myself in trouble, like it's because I've ignored the warnings of my own gut. But also, I think girls in particular, like specifically girls, we've been taught to be polite and to not make things uncomfortable, um and that is an indoctrination in and of itself that is hard to break. And like for that reason, that's another thing that makes me kind of crazy is like, I've looked at so many different, public school education on, teaching about, sexual harassment and sexual abuse and whatnot. And, the frequency in which they are asking kids to assert themselves is just so unfair because it's not, I mean, it's just not, it's not a viable solution. I mean, I
Mhm.
think, the thing I try to like impress upon parents and other girls and even, even my own kids is that, if you're in a situation where you have that gut, like warrant, like, uh-oh, like I might be in trouble here. Like the best thing you could do is just fake an urgency, like in that
Mm.
moment, because all you want to do is get yourself out of that moment right there and then. Like,
Mm.
whether it's like, I mean, it could be anything from like, oh my God, like I was supposed to be somewhere, or like, oh my God, I was supposed to text my parents, to like, I mean, even if you can't figure that out, like to have a coughing fit, like anything, like, or oh my God, I'm, going to throw up or something, something where you can physically get yourself out of the situation and then you figure out what to do, or you never kind of get around that person or in that place again. But that's kind of like the number one thing. But I mean, it's that's it's you're so right, and that's the thing that like keeps me up at night. Is I had a like a host of sexual trauma before I ever got to that group, and the stuff that happened at the youngest, age when I'm in elementary school and whatnot, that it was the same. I mean, I was literally getting like sexual abuse curriculum at the same time that I was like being sexually abused there. And it did not like the two things did not look, it wasn't like, oh yeah, that's happening to me, but I just don't feel like I can say anything. Like that seemed like a totally different thing. It was very ominous and scary and um like even the same thing like of like sleeping with older, like these all these being, I mean, let's call it what it is, being raped by all these men in AA. It didn't look like how they said it was going to look. And it didn't feel like how they said it was going to feel, like where it's like scary and it hurts and you're going to be like tremble. I mean, yeah, I did feel that way, but I always in my own head told myself that like, oh, the reason why you go to the bathroom and cry after is because of my own deficiency. Like I'm not mature enough and I need to like grow up. Not that like something was being done to me and that's why I was crying. Um, and so I think, and I mean, for goodness sakes, like Oprah, like she tried her hardest. I mean, everything, I remember watching that show with my mom and she said all these things over and over and over again, but it just, until like the rest of the world changes, like the language and the way we talk about these things, like it's not going to like click for people, especially, I mean, here's the problem with all of that stuff is that especially the younger you are, the harder it is to get, like when you use the word abuse or um any time in terms of like sexual violence, whatnot, how can you relate to that if like what's being done to you feels good? Or the person who's doing it to you is like kind or funny or gentle or buys you things or,
Right.
makes you feel special. Like
And that's
that's,
what the grooming process is designed to create.
yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But we
So,
don't know that we're being groomed. I look
no.
back and I was like, okay, I was 6 years old. I was getting gifts. I was getting candy. I was getting
Hmm.
jelly bracelets like in the 80s, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I can look back and I'm like, oh my God, that's clear and obvious. But at the time, I didn't know that I was like trust was being formed here.
Right. Right. The bond. Yes. I mean, yeah, grooming is, I hope everybody who has kind of been in that situation is able to understand how grooming works, because that is the place where you will find like self-forgiveness.
Mm.
That is like the thing that understanding how you were manipulated and that it was done intentionally and strategically, um that there's a lot of healing and understanding that there.
Yeah. I think one thing that was important for me was to realize that there are predators, and what predators have a different brain than I have. And something that happens in their brain that's not in mine is that they're looking for easy prey. They're looking for a target, and they're testing people out and finding people that they
Hmm.
can run their things on. And it doesn't, I had to understand, like, I guess, an evilness of the world that I was naive to. And I didn't even
Hmm.
understand that until I left AA, which was 5 years ago, to really read books on predators. I went through and read, like, what is emotional manipulation? What are predators like? Because I wanted to learn about it so I can, like, how do they do it so that I could recognize it?
Right, right.
Because not only was I preyed upon when I was a kid, but and I didn't know I was autistic yet, and that autistic and ADHD, and that means that my
Hmm.
social differences and my brain differences, where I was getting different information, I was picking up different things, and so autistic girls, I know specifically, 9 out of 10 of them are sexually abused by the time they're 18, and that's way higher than neurotypicals. And then autistic
Hmm.
women are 13 times more likely to die by suicide, to die, than non-autistic women. And I think it's because of all the trauma. So to me, it's like even under the sexual abuse in childhood is the neurodivergence, or the reading
Hmm.
social cues differently and stuff. So I think for anybody who's neurodivergent or is finding themselves getting traumatized, it's not our fault. But learning about the process, to me, I needed to like intellectually learn about it because I didn't have some of those innate things. I'm in the group that 90% of us are going to get sexually abused by 18, where
Yeah.
I think for non-autistic women or girls it's 33%, 1 in 3. So the odds aren't good, but they're 3 times worse in my group. So I'm like, "Oh right, I need to really learn about how this is done, like study
Hmm.
it so that I can
Hmm.
see it, so that I can trust my gut and not gaslight myself."
That's funny you say that, because I finally was treated for ADHD once I left the group. One doctor had made that suggestion to my mom when I was young, and my mom, like, she didn't believe in it. Like, I don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't, like, it's Santa or something. Like, I don't know. I think she was also a teacher, so she saw it in like the way it manifests in boys is just so obvious, and
Yeah.
it looks a lot different in girls. But yeah, I have seen a lot of um, kind of misdiagnosed, or just um,
Yeah.
when it comes to like the neurodivergent piece with women and people that have been in AA or other institutions, or that were diagnosed with this, that, and the other when they were young. Um,
We're 6 times more likely as ADHDers to develop an alcohol problem. I don't even think it sounds like you had an alcohol problem, but
no.
I think it's because of the dopamine,
Hmm.
and so to me, I don't even use the term alcoholism or alcoholic. I don't think it's helpful. I like alcohol use disorder, the modern term, and what you
Hmm.
can actually be
Hmm.
assessed as, because it's like, okay, it's all about the habit of drinking that became
It's
problematic.
it's a it's fixing something else.
Right. And so
Yeah.
what is it underneath that?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened
Um.
after you got assessed as ADHD? Did things change when you had a different understanding of your brain?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I left AA, I was 22. It was the first time that I was free and on my own. I didn't go to college. Oh, I mean, I went to college, but I didn't have the college experience. I was in a
Oh,
cult.
right.
Um, and I went to college with a bunch of other people in the cult, and we lived in houses and went back. So, and we hung out together on campus. And I mean, so I'd never been free, and so I exploded. Like, I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, as much as I wanted. Um, and I was struggling. I was depressed, obviously, because I just gave up my entire life and all these meaningful friendships that I did have some real, like some of the girls there, like I, you know, I've the ones that were the most important, and not most important, but that I had the strongest connection with, I've actually um re engaged with them in some way. Not, we don't talk all the time, but like they are people that are back in my life in some way. Um but when I left and I had the absent of all, I mean, like I said, I was doing everything, and I tried cocaine for the first time. And when I did that, um, when had that feeling of like an amphetamine, I was like, I felt like a normal person for the first time. So I was doing a lot of cocaine until I got, like I got treated for ADHD. And I'll never forget, like I was being treated for it, and I went in a bathroom at a bar or something to go do cocaine, and I just was like, I don't need this stuff anymore. And I had like this vial that I had on my keychain, and I literally threw it away. And I like, because I just like, I don't need this. Like, I'm good now. Like, I don't need this to feel like a normal person. And that's what I was doing. I was self-medicating. I like, like have a few friends who are parents who are like, I'm nervous to put my kid on, you know, treat them for their ADHD because I'm afraid it's going to like wire them for addiction. I was like, listen, let me tell you something. Like, if they have it and they have this dopamine deficiency that is very well treated by a stimulant, like they will eventually find a stimulant, and you don't, it could be a bad one. Once I was treated for that and I got on medication for ADHD, my drinking did slow down. I also think I kind of got it, like the rebellion out of my system a little bit. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
I had never been in a bar, like I'd never done all these things. So it was like, all right, I've given them the finger enough. Like I can be like a regular person now. But once, yeah, it was very helpful. And is still something that's helpful for me today. And the times like that, when I was pregnant, been pregnant twice, and then breastfed for like a year. I mean, it's really hard, going back to being like unmedicated. But that I for I was so indoctrinated for so long, even when I was diagnosed by a professional and put on medication by a professional, I in my head thought, this is drug seeking behavior. Like, I don't really have this. I've convinced this doctor that this is what I have so that I can get this stuff. Like, that's how AA had like drilled that into my head so much that like I could, you know, hoodwink a medical professional. Um, yeah. But I will say something changed. And you said you were in for 10 years and
Yeah.
you've been out for 5. I don't know if this is true for everyone, but it's true for me, and several other people I've talked to as well. When you are out longer than you were in, there's a kind of a big shift. Like that is there's like a full clearing. I feel like that happens once you've,
Going clear.
yeah, right. It's like this, like, I don't know. There's like it's almost like when you're in and you can only see like this far. It's like, if you once you get to the place where you've been out and awake longer than you were in, there's like a internal shift that kind of, where you see things more clearly, and it's released from you in a way.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I did most of my deconstructing work. I thought was good. I did it the first year. I had a therapist. I was freaked out,
Mm-hmm.
just like you. I thought I was going to die. I had no
Mm-hmm.
friends suddenly, and I was like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the pandemic started, so it was just a weird time, anyways.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It, and so, but I thought after that first year, I was kind of good, and I moved on with my life. I didn't think about AA. I didn't talk to people from AA except the ones that left that were my friends. And then when I turned 5 years sober from AA just last April, so like 4 months ago, pretty much, I decided that the what felt like an injustice in the world was building to me to a point where I just needed to talk about it. But I thought I was good when I started talking about it. And
Mm-hmm.
then talking about it every day on the internet for the past like 4 months now, it's
Mm-hmm.
grown me so much. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like humbled by how much I probably still have in me that I still can get out. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't know about AA history, like the actual history, or that AA was even a cult until 2 months ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's wild how cunning, baffling, powerful, like how deep it can go into us. And so now
Mm-hmm.
I have this like spark of like desire in me to get it all the fuck out of my head. And so
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep learning. I want to keep reading. I want to keep doing the research because I want it all gone. And not that I need it all gone or it will be all gone, but I now I actually have this huge intrinsic motivation to keep going.
Yeah.
The more that I speak about it and learn about it, the more free I'm getting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I can't believe it. It's been 5 years. Like, what do you mean?
I know. And it is like, there is there's a part of me that says, "Oh, you know what? Like, I mean, what do they teach? Live and let live." I mean, the same thing your sponsor said to you as you're watching your friend be raped. It's like there's a part of me that still feels like, "Oh, you just be grateful for your path and your journey and just let everybody do what they want to do." But it's like then I think about like the people like Leah Remini or Sarah Edmondson or
Yeah.
Virginia Dufresne or all the Farmer sisters, all the people that came out about Epstein. Like, if not for them, like I don't even know if I would be where I am, like
Yeah.
in the healing. And the more people that speak out about this kind of thing, um, the more mainstream and the less like obscure, like, oh, well, that's just that one crazy, cult over there or whatnot. And it does feel like that's what I felt in the last couple of years. Like I do have like a responsibility to, uh, prevent this from happening to other people. I remember when the Penn State um thing all came out with Sandusky and just hearing about the number of people who had bared witness and were aware of the things that were happening and just had that, live and let live, like I didn't see this. And um I could not imagine like if I had been a parent who sent my kid there or if I had been somebody who had gone and participated in that program, like the rage I would have for the people who saw something and said nothing. Um,
Mm.
and if that's true, then how dare I like not say anything about, all of this? I mean, there is, everybody's entitled to their own peace and to do what they think is right. But then, especially if you're somebody who, spouted its merits. And the problem is just like we've seen with a lot of the sex trafficking things in the news, the problem is when you are a victim of something like this, um, like there are no perfect victims. And unfortunately, the survival skills required of us to survive in these things sometimes don't make us the best messenger or the best witness or whatever. So those of us who have like had the benefit of some ther therapy and the deconstructing and whatnot, like I feel the onus is even more on those of us who have done some healing on behalf of, the
Yeah.
others that who have, are still struggling or still stuck in those, survival methods. So, you know,
Yeah. That makes literally, I'm going to cry. Yeah, I feel that so
oh,
deeply. And I
It's
think
true.
one of the other pieces that comes up for me is there were so many years, decades, where I wasn't able to speak about
Mm-hmm.
any of it. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us are not. Like, it's very common because to me, what felt to me to be more traumatic than the sexual assault in the first place was
Mm-hmm.
the not being believed when I told somebody
Oh,
about it. That felt like a different kind of betrayal that I could not endure. And so I knew not to talk about it because I couldn't take that extra betrayal on top of what I was already feeling. So
mm-hmm.
I was silencing myself out of other people's inability to be with, hear, see, like believe. And I don't blame any of these individuals because as a society, we're stunted in our ability to be there for people who have been sexually assaulted. But I was, this is the first time I've ever said this on the internet, but I was just about to cry, so I feel kind of inspired to share it. I was sexually assaulted in rehab by a staff member. And I went outside and I told my friends at rehab immediately, and I'm chain smoking with them, and I'm like, this just happened. And they said, go tell your therapist now. And I was like, no, she's not going to believe me. And they're like, no, you have to go tell her. And they pumped me up. And so that was enough to have me override my default of never talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into my therapist's office within 1 hour of it actually happening, which is like shocking, right?
Yeah.
And I told her what happened. And she told me, I've worked here 5 years and I've never heard of this before. And I said, are you saying you don't believe me? She's like, I'm saying he wouldn't do that. And I just said, well, and I didn't know what to say at that point. I was shocked, but I wasn't totally at the same time because I'd never been believed before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to her, okay, you don't have to believe me, that's fine, but I will never be in a room alone with him again. Do not ever let him come near me again. Like, even if you don't believe me, like keep him away from me. And we had two rehabs, two different houses. And so I told everybody in my house what happened. I freaked out about it at the group and said, I'm not believed. And my therapist is right there. I'm like, it's bullshit. I'm not believed. Like, I'm traumatized. And so we had another house and I told all them. And then I lost my steam after about like 4 or 5 days
Mm-hmm.
of just talking about it every day, like how messed up it was. And I was almost more mad that I wasn't believed by my therapist than by the guy who did it in the first place. And
Absolutely.
then I lost steam about it, and then a new girl joined the second house. And before I had a chance to talk to her or I had lost steam, it happened to her a week later. And then all of a sudden my therapist is like, give me the details now. And at that point I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just like, no, you want to know now? No, this is your fault. It is your fault that this happened to her. And
Mm-hmm.
when she sued the rehab, and she messaged me when I was like 3 days out of rehab and said she wanted me to come down and fly down to be in the court. I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I I couldn't do it. And I feel bad that I couldn't stand up for myself, let alone anybody else. And so
Yeah.
what you were saying has just really touched me because a lot of us can't. Like, we can't, like, it's impossible,
Mm-hmm.
and to have the voice.
When somebody rapes you or attacks you, it's like it's very easy to be able to say like this is a bad person who saw me as having like no value other than to, you know, for their use. But when the rest of the world doesn't believe you or doesn't care or asks you what you did or what all these things, that just it becomes, oh, wait a second. It's not that this person doesn't give a shit about me and that I have no value other than to satisfy them. The whole world doesn't give a shit about me. I remember kind of like getting into it with my husband a little bit about like when Christine Blasey Ford was testifying against Kavanaugh. Um, And he like said to me, he's like, with everything that's happened to you, like she didn't even, like it didn't get that bad. Like for her, like it stopped at a certain point. Like, I mean, why do you like, there's some people that have had it so much worse than her. And I'm like, well, first of all, where it stopped for her, that's actually, I mean, I speak for myself, but I've had a lot of other people agree. Like, it's not like the assault or whatever like the actual like rape or assault. It is that moment you realize, oh, like I've lost all power and I'm being overtaken. Like somebody's got their hand on your head and shoving you underwater. That is the scariest and worst
Mhm.
part. Not what
Yeah.
happens once you're underwater. It's like the, oh my God, I'm going under, it's happening. But even more so in the aftermath, once you come back out and say, oh my God, I almost drowned. Guys, like somebody help me. And like everybody's just like on their float, like, what if? Like, no, you're fine. You weren't underwater that long. Like it's no big deal. Or like, no, I didn't see that. I don't think he did that. Like that's what it's like. Oh, you just lose all faith in humanity. You lose all faith in your value as a human being. The idea that like you mattered to anyone, like having
Mhm.
that be like, oh wow, like maybe just this idea that like we matter as people and like everybody has value, like if that doesn't apply to me. And no wonder so many people take to drinking or drugging or what have you after that. I mean, because if I have no value as confirmed by the person who did this and all the people who didn't believe or think
Yeah.
that it's overblown, well, then I have no value and I can do whatever I want to myself and it doesn't matter. Um,
And I feel like this is part of why in AA the predation is such a big deal, because
mhm.
the people that it's happening to, and I just want to say it's happening to men too, obviously. We didn't really talk
Yeah,
on that. But anytime like I get a lot of men who DM me or will put in the comments, it's men too. It was my friend or it was me. So I know it happens across the board. Women are doing the 13th step to men as well. And
I did it. I did it. I mean, I was, I don't want to interrupt you, but to that point, because I don't want to always just talk about the awful things that happened to me. I mean, there was a young boy from a fabulous family, a very well-to-do family, and he was very attractive. And so therefore he was very attractive to the group, like, oh, he comes from money, he's good looking, his parents are powerful, whatever. This is somebody we want in the group. Well, he was a virgin, and I was basically assigned to uh go away with him for the weekend and remove that from as a means to kind of like draw him in. Um, and I did because I did what I was told. And I felt, I remember like afterwards, like when we went home after that weekend, like he was like, I could tell that he was confused by my lack of like interest. Like, well, wait, aren't we like, and it was hard for him that he didn't matter to me, but like I didn't matter to me. Like I didn't matter. He did, like I knew we didn't matter. Like that was a transaction that I was asked to perform and I did what I was told. And so it you know, was it like, I mean, we were the same age. Like it wasn't like a harrowing memory for him or anything. It was fine, but like I do feel um I remember I did feel bad that I couldn't feel anything like for him, but I was like a commodity, and I treated myself and everyone else as such. So yeah, it does happen to men, both gay and straight. So, um,
Who was the person, not necessarily name, that told you to sleep with him? Was it your sponsor, a group leader, a friend, or was it just
Yeah,
the culture in general?
it wasn't like you are to go and do this. It was just kind of like a gentle, like, you know what, I think it would be really great if, and you know, he's a virgin. So it'd be, why don't you help him? And like, why don't you go and like, and it probably came from my sponsor or maybe their sponsor at the time. It was never like Mike issued his directives like down, like it was very rare that you would get something straight from him because, then he would have to claim it. One time he was a he and one of the women he sponsored, who was my sponsor at the time, they eh, set me on a similar mission, but it was a man from the Pacific group who was in town and wanted to be sure that he had a good time and was taken care of and went back home with positive things to say. And so I was kind of sent to him and to his hotel room for that reason. And in that case, it was a little bit more like, why don't you go do this? Whereas with a when I was younger with that younger guy, it was more just like like almost convincing me that it was like my idea. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, you know, I did it. And I also, encouraged, nobody ever, that's the thing. Like, it was always a big thing that, like, you got to sponsor a bunch of women, you got to bring these women. I was never like a good sponsor. Like, I only sponsored like a handful of people. I think because I just couldn't sell it as well because I wasn't as bought in. I was just a little bit more trapped. And I was also like kind of a bitter person um just after a couple years, but I did encourage like though I did sponsor a girl for a while and I mean, got Mike wanted her and he was calling me saying, "Hey, what's going on with her? Like, what are we doing? Like, I'd really like to spend some time with her." And I understood what that meant. Like, I was supposed to encourage her to go be with him. And I did try. She was like, could not stomach the idea of it, rightfully so. And I did push much harder than that. But I tried to do the bidding of some of these older men, um, and there was a time where Mike was after me, and I just could not I was like, I just cannot do it again. Like I was just not in a place where I could do it, and I remember like saying like, can't this one do it instead? Like throwing one of my girlfriends under the bus, like, can't she go do this? Like, just to save myself, I threw other people under the bus and in harm's way. Um, so yeah, it does, not to like interrupt your thought, but I just, the opportunity takes a little bit of accountability presented itself. I feel like I needed to do that, but yeah, it does happen to boys and men.
And I feel like that could be one of the really hard things about leaving too and gaining the insight of what actually, like the clarity of what was actually going on. It's like a rude awakening. For me, it was to realize the harm that I created by
Hmm.
participating in the ideology, how I turned around and indoctrinated others the same way that I was indoctrinated.
Hmm.
And the way I look at it, it's like that happened to Bill. Bill was indoctrinated into the Oxford group and then got sober. Then he rebranded it AA. So the same thing that was done to me was done to the founder of AA. So
Hmm.
it kind of looks like to me, like there's nobody, I mean, take responsibility and accountability, but there's like nobody to blame because we're all just doing what was done to us to some level or something. Of the ones who stay, that's the culture. And that's how we get accepted, loved, by being obedient to the
Hmm.
ideology, principles over personality. So, yeah, there was a lot of forgiveness I had to do, make amends to people in the group, like the women that I sponsored. They were like, no, you were fine. All of them were like, you were
Yeah.
fine. I'm like, but I told you were going to die if you left the group, and I did this and I did that. They're like,
Hmm.
I don't know if you still believe that or not, but it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I was thinking earlier was, I understand what you mean about how you feel that you want to speak about some of this stuff, because a lot of people can't,
Hmm.
for the reasons already discussed, or are still in it or whatever. And
Hmm.
I feel that too. I feel especially with the sexual abuse stuff, I do feel a very strong desire to speak about things that have taken me years, if not decades, to be able to actually speak about, to hopefully help people suffer less who are further down the path or in it now. I feel that same thing.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's good. You're an important voice because we need to have people that actually that have legitimate or have had problems with drugs and alcohol speak to the fact that, like, because the funny thing is, like, when I've, like, listened to you or, like, heard, um, like, some of your podcasts, like, I think if I was still in the group, I'd be like, oh my God, how dangerous is this woman? Like, how dangerous. She is so lost, like on the verge of drinking and dying, and she doesn't even know it. And look at all these people that she's encouraging the same. And I mean, you would have been like public enemy number one, dangerous, Um, which it all just goes back to the whole that, like, I remember, like, Mike Rinder talking about, like, doing like a Q&A about Scientology, and they said, how do you know when something's like a cult? And he's like, the easiest way to identify, like, yeah, there's all this checklist of whatever, but, like, look at what happens to the people. What do they do when you leave? That's the tell. And it is, I mean, it's true. Like, if and I understand that people think, because I thought it too, like, oh, well, look, this person's gone back out, like, they're dangerous to us, like, we have to protect. It's like, I love them, but we have to protect ourselves, and you know hopefully, they can make their way back or whatever. But, like, to just cut people out completely, it's like, well, hey, listen, you know a healthy, well-meaning group, institution, methodology, whatever, would wish people well and remain available and open if they wish to come back. And if they don't, that's great too. Like, again, there can't be one way. And, um, and to, like, label anybody like an enemy or a danger or an airborne contagion because they're going to do something else is great. I mean, that's, hello, like, that's brainwashing cults 101.
Totally. I've been called so many names. It's been so, I
Oh
should
my
make a
God.
list of the names I've been called on
I can't even
by
imagine.
AAers.
Did you read Leah Remini's book? Um, I think it was called Troublemaker.
I did not read it, but I watched the
Yeah.
documentaries on Scientology.
The
And they helped a
wonderful.
lot. They helped me a lot.
Oh, so much. But the best part of her book was on the first page, because, like, literally, she opened the book and she said, I've slept with a married man. Like, my husband has, like, been a drug dealer. I've stolen money from this person. I've said this to, she literally, like, just completely took all the air out of everything she knew that they were going to do to her. Like, it's all like, you
Like
can't say
Eminem,
anything.
Eminem style.
Yeah, like, you can't say anything. Like, here are all the terrible things that I've
Yeah.
done. So now how are you going to discredit me?
I just feel so excited, I first want to say, for this episode. I feel like we touched on so many things that are rarely talked about. And I
Mm.
want to thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability and your courage to have this conversation.
Oh,
It
sure.
even allowed me to open up and share something I've never shared online before,
Yes,
because
and thank you for trusting that.
yeah, I felt like in the just in the space of this episode, I felt like anybody who is going to be relating to this kind of trauma and institutionally and with AA or whatever, I just felt like let's just leave it all here for anybody because it's hard. It's rarely talked about.
Hmm.
I rarely talk about it, and I just feel like hearing about it and feeling validated by other people's stories is part of the healing. So
Oh,
thank you
yeah.
for being willing to like lead this conversation and talk about your story and your
Of
experience in AA.
course. Of course. Of course. No, I'm grateful to, to find the people that are willing to have the conversation anytime. So I thank you for having the stamina to do this and to keep going, even when, you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about it or face it. So,
Well,
or are
yeah,
just going to discourage or going to like, shit on you for doing it. So,
totally. I feel like
yeah.
this past week somebody told their home group about me because I got flooded this past week with like way more than normal. I'm like, is this like a whole home group over here? They're
Oh,
like, yeah.
really?
I don't know. I'm like, I guess it's troll season right now.
My gosh.
I'm kind of
I don't.
like, bro, the way that I think about it, and I've said this analogy before, I feel like when we're in AA, we're the prisoner and we're the guard.
Mm-hmm.
We're keeping ourselves trapped in the prison. And I'm the
Yeah.
one, all I'm saying is the door's open, you can leave. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're like shooting me. I'm like,
Right. Right. Right.
the door's open. You can fly away. Is there anything that we didn't say yet, or any last words, or anything else that you want to say before we end?
I think you're doing great work, and I applaud and appreciate people are willing to tell the truth. Um, and I think your intended audience is probably the right one. I do think we got to find a way to um, get the cultural like consciousness on board with this too, because um, it's very it's very easy to like make this be about like, oh, like, disgruntled former AA members. It's a different thing when um kind of unbiased, either professionals, the people that are doing the referring to AA.
Mm.
I really, really encourage them to, dive a little bit deeper into different methodologies and the potential harms, and where they could be sending people. Because I think that once that like narrative shifts and it's not just from the inside, so to speak, I think that will be very helpful, and helping protect and save a lot of people.
Yeah. I do feel that AA is going to have its like Me Too moment, and it hasn't yet. I feel like it will happen, and I don't think that that means AA will end, nor do I even, well,
Yeah.
whatever. It can exist. But
Mm-hmm.
I just really believe in consent and informed consent. And if you go because you feel like there's benefits there, just understand the potential harms
Right.
and listen to a couple dissenters before you go so you can go in a little bit more prepared. But
Yeah.
I really want it to be aware publicly. I want the public consciousness to shift on addiction recovery.
Yeah.
I do. And that's part of what my mission is to shift, to shift the consciousness so that we can have safer recovery. I think
Yeah.
we deserve better, and we deserve modern science and truth and reality.
Did you listen to the 13th step podcast series? Like it was like a little series. It's not like ongoing. It's like a reporter who did a series of like 8 or 9 episodes.
No.
Okay, I would encourage you to listen to it, but given what you've shared, like just brace yourself because it's a lot of what you have endured in terms of like rehabs and
Yeah.
um I mean it's a lot of that. So they talk about AA, but it's also like in like the abuse that occurs in these unregulated rehab facilities and how they prey on women and stuff. So, but it's, I mean, very informative and um, I hope it made a bigger splash than what it seems. But it's like the reporter that did it was like, NPR for like this one area of like some Midwest state. I can't even remember. Um, but yeah, brace yourself if you listen to it, but it'll be validating.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I mean, I feel mostly fine on what I've gone through. What
Hmm.
my heart breaks is that people are going through that today.
Yeah, and that's what it
That's
is.
that's what my heart breaks for, is the people who right now are experiencing that, or who are about to, and like preventing that. Like,
Hmm.
it's how do we get people out of that? Like, we know better now, we deserve better. Like, and I did see a movie called The 13th Step by Monica Richardson, which
I
was,
was that like on YouTube?
it was released as a,
Oh,
it was at a film festival or something. Yeah, but
okay.
she put it for free on YouTube so everybody
Okay.
could watch it for free.
Yeah. Was that like the Scranton? Do they talk about the group in Scranton?
Honestly, I don't remember because I watched it like 4 years ago.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks again for being
Of
a
course.
voice on this. And I hope somebody who needed to hear this, I hope it makes it to them. And I hope
Yes, me
anybody who's
too.
listening, who knows anybody who might be going through this, can send this to a friend, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, you're not alone. You're not the only one. And there's a way out. Um, yeah, I just feel, I don't know. It's such a hard one because we gaslight ourselves out of it too because we're not believed, you know? So this one is the one that really breaks my heart the most.
Hmm.
And it's all over AA. Everybody, most people probably know about it happening in AA. It'd be
Yeah.
hard for me to believe that people haven't heard of this happening in AA. And the people who say it happens in every group, to me, that's just like, because she's wearing a skirt. It's like the same thing, you know? It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, but it doesn't mean it's okay. It
And if it
doesn't,
does happen in every group, that's a problem. That's not
no,
a
no,
place where we should be sending people. Oh,
no,
you mean like
people,
every institution and every place?
people say every group you go into there's bad people. I'm like, that to me that's a cop out. It's again, it's all
Yeah.
these cops out. These we're not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I know talking about it is a start.
Yeah.
Breaking the silence on it is a great place to start.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to solve it, and I don't know if it will be solved, but I know that being honest can be really helpful.
Yes. And it can save people that and prevention. I do believe that like a lot of the people and places that have said like I just can't touch that, like I welcome their future apologies. So um and I understand why they've said that and felt that way. I get it. I understand they just felt, we've all been, like you said, we've all been indoctrinated and you don't want to mess with people, if, play with people's lives. And I totally get that. Um, but, like you said, it's coming, it's happening, it's good. So thank
The
you
way,
for your
the way,
part in it.
yeah, the wave is here. It hasn't like
Yes.
it's not ready to be surfed yet, but the wave is.
Yes.
I see it. It's on the horizon. I've been
Yeah.
tapped. You've been tapped. A lot of us have been tapped. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I agree that it's the people who came out about Scientology, like Leah, or um, come out about Nexium.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the people who have already come out to talk about cults has been really helpful, even when I wasn't sure that AA was a cult yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I really just appreciate everybody's courage to talk about the hard things because I feel like it's helped me so much.
Yeah.
And I love that you're doing that out there too. And so thanks again. I've said thanks a million times, but I feel especially grateful to people like you because it's not easy
Mm-hmm.
and it's not common and it's
Mm-hmm.
so incredibly helpful.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Well,
Thanks
keep in
everybody.
touch if I can do
Yeah,
anything.
thanks everybody for joining us today. Please, I love to hear from you in the comments below. Leave comments below. What were your thoughts? What came up for you? And definitely share this with anybody that you think it might be helpful with. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.